Welcome everyone to my first ever YouTube video. Today we're going to be discussing the best ways to crush your local Shadow of the Galaxy pre-release. And if this is your first pre-release, you may be confused on how it is done. Each person is essentially given a pre-release kit that includes 6 packs and 2 leader promos. These are going to be Moff Gideon and the Mandalorian for the Shadows of the Galaxy. Everything that's included in this kit is yours to play with, including those leaders. And once everybody gets settled in, you're going to have roughly 55 minutes to build a 30-card deck from scratch using the leaders, the units, events, and upgrades that you pull from those 6 packs, and including those 2 leaders. Most of the events that you will run into are going to be played in a best 2 out of 3 and then overall Swiss structure, which means that the winners will get paired against winners, and those who lose will get paired against each other as well. So let's move on to the overall strategy that I'll be talking about today. First things first, you're going to open your packs, of course, and then set aside all of the leaders and bases, including that Mandalorian and the Gideon. And then what I like to do is sort by color. I sort by generics, heroics, and villainy of each color. And I have a graphic on display right now to demonstrate what that would look like, where you can see the Millennium Falcon, the Frontier Trader, and then the Zuckuss to basically, that would be my yellow, right? That would be my yellow stack. Once everything has been separated out, you can count to see which colors have the most cards. Remember, you need 30 cards to build a deck. Typically, you want to avoid event-heavy decks in this format since you need units to really function. I recommend separating out those units and then counting just those, excluding the events and upgrades. Most decks will end up running between 20 and 24 units, and that's just typically something that I've seen playing a lot of pre-releases. And then you'd have 6 to 10 upgrades and events, mostly events there. And the most important thing, if you're looking to crush your local event, is do not try to build any combo decks, nothing fancy. We're relying on a very simple method, which is known as BREAD. And that stands for bombs, removal, evasion, aggro, and duds. And I will go into all of those specifically and what they mean shortly. Now, as I mentioned, B is for bombs. Bombs are incredibly strong cards, typically with multiple keywords or activated abilities. These do not always have to be something with an activated ability or special keyword, like the Desperado Freighter seen here. Good bomb cards can make or break your game, so this is always the first thing to look at when you are crafting your pre-release deck. In some cases, a card is so good, it can be played out of aspect. While you will have to incur an aspect penalty, this can be worth it to have a massive unit on the board. I try to keep this at 2 or fewer cards in my 30-card deck. Can you guess which one of these cards is not a bomb? You are correct. Finalizer is not a bomb card. And the reason I say that is because it is an 11/11 that costs 11. While it does have fantastic keywords, like the Overwhelm and the When Played ability, it just is too late. It comes out at 11 resources, and in this format, that is just much too late. Remember, we won't be able to build a really strong combo deck because we're not going to have every single card we need in the amounts we need them. R is for removal. Removal cards are defeat abilities, capture abilities, and damage abilities. This set is relatively light on hard removal cards, so make sure to take special note of those seen here. These cards provide tremendous value to your deck, especially when it gets into the later game. Capture is not the same thing as defeat or damage. Defeating a unit is what we call hard removal, and damage is very much the same. Capture is a secondary form of removal, which can only guarantee that the chosen unit will be exhausted when it re-enters play. Can you guess which card out of these is not a good removal card? You are correct. Headhunting requires a lot of setup for the payoff, which means it is very unreliable in this format. When we include removal in our deck, we want a guaranteed option. Let's move on to E in Bread. E stands for Evasion. In Star Wars Unlimited, the easiest way to evade your opponent is through the Space Arena. The Space Arena can only be hit by units in space or removal cards. Currently, there are no leaders that deploy into the Space Arena, and so it is one of the harder arenas to hit. This means you can push a lot of damage through to your opponent if they cannot find an answer. There are other ways to evade your opponent as well. Outflank is a great example, seen pictured here. By allowing you to attack with 2 units in one action, you give your opponent less time to respond to those units. Saboteur is another keyword to look out for. This allows you to bypass sentinels to hit your opponent's base immediately. Can you guess which one of these cards is not a great evasion card? That would be Scanning Officer. While it isn't a bad card, it doesn't have any keywords that help evade your opponent, and it is a ground unit, and a relatively weak one at that. This means it can be easily dealt with by your opponent. The A in Bread stands for aggro. When we're talking about aggro in a constructed form, that means a deck that is really focused on hitting your base fast. In the limited sense, or in this case where we're talking with the Bread acronym, aggro is typically mentioned about units that hit at or above their cost, meaning they're really efficient cards. And they typically provide really good stats. Many of these units will have 4 or more hit points and will deal for 3 to 6 damage every single time they hit. These are the workhorses of your deck and will deal the most damage over time. As you can see from the card pool I've assembled, most of them are going to be common and uncommon, which means when you're pulling your packs, they're going to be some of the most common cards you're going to see. Can you see which card here is not a great aggro option? That would be the Enterprising Lackeys. This card requires 2 command icons, which is very hard to build in a limited format. Most of the time you will be required to play with 2 colors, which would make this card a 6-cost 5/5, meaning that it is below curve. And when we're talking about below curve, it just means that the stats on the unit do not reflect its cost. If you don't have too much top end, it's not bad to include some of these cards, especially if you really need just something that has a body, but don't try to make it too much of your deck. Last but not least, let's get to the D in Bread, and that stands for Duds. These cards suck. While there are certain decks in the constructed format that could be good with these cards, in the limited pre-release format, it is very hard to make some of these cards work. I have also included a couple leaders that are extremely hard to build with in limited. Remember, anything that requires too much setup or combo power will be much harder to build with when compared to just playing solid units with good stats. Can you guess which one of these cards is not a dud? That is correct. Wrecker is the only card pictured that is not a complete dud. In fact, Wrecker is one of the highest value cards you can play in limited and in constructed. Not only does it have above curve stats, it has 2 fantastic abilities, Overwhelm and a when played trigger that can act as removal. This is exactly what you want to see when you are playing in the limited format. Now that you know the rules, the basic strategy, and what to look for, let's talk about why you should go to these events. The number one reason, of course, to play in these pre-release events is to have a great time. Have fun. You get to hang out with your friends at your favorite local gaming store and play some of the new Star Wars Unlimited, Shadows of the Galaxy. Not only is it a ton of fun, but it is great value. Most stores that I've been to offer pricing based on how much you win. And since you're watching this video, you're going to win quite a bit and walk away with some incredible cards and a smile on your face. My personal reason to go is testing yourself. These events are pretty low stake relatively to some of the bigger events, but they can be challenging to build a deck that is viable with only 6 packs and random leaders. It is a great way to start thinking about the game in different ways and to understand leaders that maybe you haven't touched in a while or have never played with before. Yeah, that's really all I got for this one, guys. I really do appreciate you sticking with me for this whole thing. Like I said, it's my first video on YouTube ever. I do stream on Twitch as well. We've got some TTI games over there, which is the Take the Initiative online tournament. Links will be in the description below. But if you like this, definitely give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that. And subscribe here, follow me on Twitch, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much. Take care.